What's up, guys? We are back. Fitness Profit Multiplier, Anthony and Jimmy. Today, we're going to be discussing how you're going to go out of business. That's right. I said it. You're going to go out of business if you don't track this one thing. And this is underrated. A lot of people don't do this. They think they have a good handle on this, but they don't, and they don't even know the ins and outs of their own business when it comes to this. So that's why this is so important. And if you don't monitor these things very, very closely, your business is going to go out the window. Jimmy, what are they, man? Let's go over it. What is it?
Drum roll. So many gym owners are notoriously bad at this. It's baffling how many people don't do this one thing that we're talking about. And this one thing is tracking your damn numbers. Business, all business, every business, everywhere. Anybody you do business with, your mortgage, the burger that you get for dinner, the subscription to a cell phone service that you have, anything where you're exchanging money for value is all based upon a math equation. And some of those math equations are more complicated than others. The funny thing about the gym business is the math equation is pretty damn simple. You don't have, this loan that you're trying to base against the interest rates and all this other stuff. Like, think about a mortgage, right? Like, that's a pretty complicated math equation when it comes down to it. There's a lot of moving parts. With a gym business, there's not that many moving parts. We're not even really an inventory-based business, which has more moving parts than a service-based business, right? May cause a little more problems for us employee-wise because we can't just put some high school kid in there to sell t-shirts. But when we look at our business with how simple the math actually is for a service-based business, the fact that so many gym owners don't track any numbers or have any pulse on what their business is doing is one of the main reasons why people fail and why people have a hard time paying rent, have a hard time making payroll, all these different things, because they think if you build it, they will come. They add more staff, they add more rent, they buy more equipment, they do all these things that they think are going to pay off over time. But if you don't run the numbers and really calculate what that looks like and what your return on your money is, it doesn't make any sense. You're flying blind. So you're closed before you even know it. As soon as you start tracking your numbers, you're like, oh man, I'm 3 months away from closing. And then your gym shuts down and all the effort and energy that you put in is all for naught. And it's a pretty bad situation for a lot of people that a lot of people had to experience during the craziness we experienced a couple of years ago, because they didn't know until their members left for this virus that shut us all down, that they were already months or weeks away from closing before that started, because they didn't know their numbers and they didn't have the wherewithal to put the money in the bank and have the reserve funds and all these different things that you have to have. And when we're talking about tracking numbers, we're not talking necessarily about your bank account, which is really important to track. We're talking about the things that trickle down and affect your bank account. These are the things we need to track that you're really bad at tracking. Like, gym owners don't even really look at their bank account all that much either. They, at the end of the month, they're like, do I have money? Do I not have money? Right? And that's where you get in trouble too. But if you focus on these other numbers, the money will work and you'll be able to predict it. So, Anthony, what's the most important number or the most important couple of numbers that people have to track before we get into all the numbers that they can track?
This is a hard one to answer because there's a lot of, depends on the business, right? There's a bunch of different ones. But one of the main things I would say, I would say payroll. Obviously, payroll is really, really important, a really important number to know how much is actually going out every month. A lot of people run with inflated staffs. They have way too much staff members. They have an admin person who does nothing all day, and they're not getting the return on that type of an investment. So I guess you could look at payroll. But one of the things I always look at consistently is what's coming out. I look at the P&L almost, I look at the bank account, what's going out every day. What's this subscription? What can I cancel? What is this? Why am I spending money on that? Because that's one of the most important things to me that I can look at, because you never know when something's going to come in that, oh, what is that for? Do I need this? Are you even using it? How many subscriptions do you have? That's probably one of the numbers that's important, along with payroll. I mean, there's so many to look at.
Yeah. And when you look at your bank account, you look at numbers, it's like we have to track these things and fine tooth comb these things. And we've talked about that in other episodes, because that's one of the reasons why people fail. They just have this inflated amount of expenses that don't make any sense in regards to their income, right? But when we look at the flip side of that, like, focus on your bank account. Make sure that you know what's going in and going out of that. That's the lifeblood of your business. If you have no profit, you have no business, right? So when we look at, because on a side note, profit protects your business, right? Profit is not just necessarily your take, right? Profit protects your business from economic ups and downs, from all these weird things. And you have to have a little bit of a cash reserve and make sure that this is all stacked up. Personally, my belief is that you want to have probably about 3 months of burn rate in your bank account, right? Some other people may disagree in the industry. Some other gurus may disagree, but from my take, 3 months. I don't know how many months you tend to like to keep, Anthony, but for me, it's 3 months of burn.
Yeah, 3 months is probably optimal. 6 is probably like where you have a good blanket. I would say 6 is ultimately, for an established business, 6 is where you got to be at. But yeah, anywhere between that 3 and 6 months, but at least minimum 3. If you got 1 month of funds, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, and you have to look at your burn, right? Because your burn is going to be your rent and your payroll and all these things that you burn. And so Anthony's talking about getting rid of the burn, right? Making sure the burn is not so high that it makes no sense, right? You don't want to have people just, leeching off your business doing nothing. But how do we influence those numbers on the front end, right? Because we look at our bank account and we go, that's a lagging indicator, but we want this leading indicator that's going to tell us, what does our bank account look like, right? What is it going to look like? And we know that through these couple of metrics that are pretty standard metrics, that if you're not tracking right now, you need to immediately finish the rest of this episode and immediately start tracking. Okay. So how many members are you adding on a monthly, weekly basis? How many members are you losing? And how many members are freezing, right? These 3 are going to tell you the finances of your business. Because if you're losing more than you're gaining, you're not in a good position, right? You're going to be down revenue. And if your freezes increase past a normal freeze percentage, you got to know your freeze percentage on average every month. You don't know your freeze percentage, they're pushing above normal, then you're going to have a revenue dump. And you normally have a revenue dump from your initial projection of that month. Because if you have a software that projects your revenue, you'll kind of know what that looks like. Your original projection is going to be lower solely based on frozen members. This is before you lose anybody. Because some of these frozen members turn into losses too. But those frozen members are going to directly affect your revenue in a way that seems surprising to you, because it's not loss or gain, it's just loss in revenue for that month's time. So we have to look at all 3 of these numbers and how they affect your total revenue, so that we can project how much payroll we can afford, how much profit we're going to get, all these different things. So if we're looking at it from a leading indicator, those are probably the top 3 numbers. And we have a few podcasts in here where we talk about sales and the sales numbers you need to track too. We don't need to get into that today, but there's extra numbers in your sales process that predict how many members you're actually going to get from how many leads you have. So we want to first look at the bank account, what's going in, what's coming out every month. Look at what's going out. Do you need to have all those things coming out? Okay. Look at that bank account. Do you have 3 months of reserve capital, 3 months of burn rate? So everything that you're spending every month on average, do you have that in a bank account ready to go if you run into a problem? Yes or no? Right? If you don't, you got to start building that cash reserve. And then The third thing we want to look at is those three metrics: gained members, frozen members, lost members. What do those numbers look like? And the simple math of it is, if you have more gain than freeze and loss, you're growing.
Exactly. One of the things that I do too that I want to add in there that I think is really, really important, has been vital for my success doing this for so long. Every month, I make it a habit. The first of the month, I go in and I look at my P&L. Like, I have an active running kind of P&L that I keep track of on myself, right? Like, I use QuickBooks, so it's pretty easy to pull it up. But you look at your P&L. You literally take time out. You put this in your schedule. You take time out. You look at your P&L and you track your numbers. You compare what you did this year in whatever, May, to last year in May, and look at what's going on. Are my expenses higher? Is my payroll higher? Am I making more? Am I making less? Am I taking home more? What's my owner benefit? Like, I'm looking at those things. I'm comparing the two. And then this allows me to set goals for the next month. So this way I know, okay, June of 2022, I did this. So now I want to make sure I beat that and do this month. And again, just looking at that constant P&L, but taking the time out to look at my finances like that and make that appointment with myself has gone above and beyond to keeping me as profitable as possible, because that is the key here. Is you have to remain as profitable as possible. And that's the key to having high margins in your business, is looking and combing through that P&L all the time consistently. And if you guys want help with any of that stuff, just click the links below. You guys know what to do. And until next time, Anthony and Jimmy, Fitness Profit Multiplier. Track your numbers, or else we'll catch you on the next one.